I won't act like I'm the first person to discuss this topic, and it's not that I'm copying anyone else, I just feel it's really interesting and I did just want to give my opinion on it. So the topic is obviously, is this sequel trilogy era and original trilogy era of Capsule Supremacy being rushed, and this content wave in general, to be honest. And this topic has sparked a lot of discussion in the community. I think it's very interesting and there are a few different ways to look at it, so I'm going to give you my best kind of roundup of what I'm thinking here, because like a lot of you know, I was very critical of this game, but I feel that's brought out the best of it, and these days I don't really have a bad word to say about Battlefront 2. I think it's made the best recovery possible, but I'm not going to spam you with recovery talk because I know that's what a lot of people just talk about for every video, about how the game has recovered. I think we know that now and it's in our heads. So let's discuss the prequel wave of content first of all, because obviously that began with General Grievous in October of 2018 and it went right through really to October 2019 with Felucia, and you could even say December 2019 with those ARC Trooper skins. But in the midst of that, in March of 2019, Capsule Supremacy launched for the prequel era, and it unfortunately only launched with one map, which was very, very sad because it was around, let's say, 10 months of actually knowing that this game mode was coming, the announcement and everything like that, and it launched with one map, which was a new map. But yeah, Geonosis on its own, I suppose you could say the two capital ships as well, so it did launch with 3, but after that we just got one map a month with the prequel era. But to be fair, once again, we did end up completing the full set of prequel maps with all 5. So Geonosis, Kashyyyk, Naboo, Camino and Felucia are all present, but they were kind of coming over a period of time which did make things very stale. I have to say, after the March update of 2019, it did kind of go to a pretty stale point because it was just one Capsule Supremacy map a month with a few bug fixes. I think there was a few skins here and there, but those updates did become a bit repetitive and it did feel very stretched out. In the long term, it was very easy to say they're delivering the Clone Wars content we've asked for, but is there anything coming after this? Which we didn't know, but there was a lot coming after this. However, it didn't stop the fact that this content was just being pushed out at probably the speed of a gonk droid. But June time completed the Capsule Supremacy wave, droidicas were in the game as well, a lot of new reinforcements were added, and things were looking good in terms of the prequel era. But then people were starting to put into perspective, if they are to add this mode to the other trilogies, to the sequel trilogy, to the OT trilogy, how long is Capsule Supremacy actually going to take? Now, by the time we reached October, Felucia was added into the roster. Obviously that wasn't out back in June, so you did have the complete set. And then it was announced that the sequel trilogy would be getting Capsule Supremacy, so everyone's thinking, well, yeah, that pretty much confirms the OT as well, which later did get confirmed this year, in fact. But it did confirm that, so how long is this going to take? And then to everyone's surprise, the sequel trilogy Capsule Supremacy launched just last month in 2020, and it launched with 3 maps, which was a bit of an increase, to be fair, compared to the prequel launch with just 1 map. And that's 3 on the ground maps as well, so if you want to include the 2 capital ships, which are astonishing as well. So you've got Aegon Kloss, Takodana and Jakku. However, there was a few bugs here and there with this. One of the main things being that the cutscenes weren't in there, which may seem like a minor thing to some people, but it was just that extra effort that was put into the mode that did kind of make things seem a bit more rushed. Like when you board a capital ship and you just hear like a random boarding noise, there's no cutscene or anything like that. Alright, while the prequel era did kind of have just the same cutscenes but with different planets in the background, you'd always have the crashing droid gunship, they were there. There's been many complaints about Crate and Starkiller Base being absent from this roster as well in the sequel trilogy, but I, like many other people, thought, well, it's fine because they'll add them later on. Crate is a difficult one, and while I do believe with Crate that they make things out to be a little harder than they actually are, with the whole Crate heroes versus villains situation as well, you could just have it indoors at this point, but they seem to avoid that. It's like an easy way out, the map wouldn't work. I don't think we've ever had a concrete explanation for the absence of Crate in pretty much every mode except Galactic Assault. I think it's in Blast as well. But Starkiller Base is in co-op and it's not present in Capsule Supremacy. And then obviously we got the announcement that OT, Capsule Supremacy, would be arriving. And here's where things get a little interesting, because it was confirmed that it would be coming with no capital ships, and only 2 maps so far as well, Scarif and Death Star, however others could be confirmed. But that pretty much says after Capsule Supremacy was spaced out for the prequel era over the course of quite a few months, if not just under a year in a way, if you include Felucia in there as well, and all the different editions like the skins, everything like that. And then you look at the sequel era, and they did it over a month. Now yeah, there's factors to consider there. Is it down to more devs working on the game now, they managed to get it out quicker, or is it due to the appeal? Obviously they know as far as the audience goes, the Clone Wars content is the priority and they'd rather get back to that. I don't know, but I still feel it is unfair on those sequel fans. But then, instead of saying, okay, Starkiller Base is coming in February, Crate's coming in March, they say the OT, Capsule Supremacy, begins in February, with Scarif coming at a later date, so I'm guessing that's March. So Death Star now, with the absence of capital ships. That's a big pointer that I kind of understood from the description, but there's more to read into. But does it suggest that they're being a bit lazy? Now I admit it's worded very well in the community transmission that it would seem a bit weird going from the Death Star to a capital ship, or Scarif with a shield gate protecting it to a capital ship, but there's other maps. You have Endor, Hoth, Tatooine, Yavin 4, and it wouldn't seem too weird to me to go from any 4 of those planets to a capital ship. So where's the catch here? Is it only going to be the Death Star and Scarif for this original trilogy era? Because if you think about it, you could easily even things out. If you had Starkiller Base and Crate to the sequel era, it would be 5 maps in the sequels and 5 maps in the prequels. And then not including Scarif, if you went with the 5 vanilla maps of the OT and added them into Capsule Supremacy, it would be 5 in that era as well. So why bother adding Scarif would be another point there, even though I do want to see it like everyone else. Has the balance kind of been lost there? Is it going to remain 5 in the prequel era, 3 in the sequel era, and 2 maps in the original trilogy era? Because like I said, capital ships on the Death Star definitely doesn't make much sense. Capital ships on Scarif, yeah, while you could blow the shield gate down, it does kind of take away from why didn't they do that in Rogue One. So yeah, once again, it doesn't really make sense to have capital ships on Scarif. But does it make sense to have capital ships on any of the other 4 planets I mentioned, like Hoth, like Tatooine, like Yavin, like Endor? Of course it does. So what's going to be the excuse for that? Another good pointer is, well, like I've discussed in my videos as well, the ship interiors could seem similar, especially for the Rebel ships, but judging by how different they were from the campaign versions that I've discussed in previous videos, while those maps are similar, there's a lot of new additions, I don't think that's a valid excuse either. I think the maps would be significantly different, especially the Star Destroyers, because First Order Star Destroyers use a completely different lighting scheme than those Imperial Star Destroyers. Now you've also got the fans like myself asking for a lot of Galactic Assault content, but does this raise the question, once this Capsule Supremacy stuff is done with for the OT, is that it for Battlefront 2? Because while the game is doing great so far, it's nearly coming up to 3 years old, which is quite ridiculous. Are they going to support a game like that? I would say yes. Why wouldn't you? The game is doing exceptionally well, but at the same time, is it bringing in that revenue for EA? Well, apparently the Celebration Edition performed very well, so I don't know with that one once again. Maybe they're just trying to get Capsule Supremacy out of the way so that is done and dusted, so they can move on to something else a bit more quickly, like new heroes, like Galactic Assault maybe. I don't quite understand it myself. Maybe they're just trying to offer that variety there while the players are all coming back to support every era, because if you just keep it for the prequels, I'm the biggest prequel fan there is, and it is getting a bit repetitive. So is this content being rushed? It could certainly look that way, and I think if no valid explanations are given, it will look that way even more. We need an explanation as to why Starkiller Base and Crate, especially Starkiller Base, are being skipped over once again I feel Crate could work. There's a lot of indoor stuff with Crate as well as outdoor, and there's a lot of environmental clutter like the huge ATM6s that you could also add into the game and just have them scattered around and use more of the indoor environment. There's a lot of outer bounds areas in that indoor environment as well, so I think Crate is something we as the fans let EA and DICE off with a little too easy. But hey, if they were to give an actual explanation as to why Crate doesn't make its way into H3V with an indoor map, then I'd be all for that. Explanations do come across as much better than leaving things quiet. But overall, like I've said, I am impressed with where this game is today, and I find it very hard to complain about anything. My biggest complaint recently has been Galactic Assault, and even that, like I've said, it's not going to affect the player base if they never add anything to Galactic Assault ever again. But I think it is possible that things are being brushed here, especially for the sequels. It was like that with the droid heroes. While I love them, they skipped any human heroes that would have taken more effort, because I think they know the fan base isn't there as much for those. But that is unfortunate once again, because there's a lot more you can deliver in the game. I already love the sequel trilogy Capsule Supremacy more than the prequel era Capsule Supremacy. I know that might be controversial, but I prefer the capital ships. The ground maps work a lot better, and I do like the droid heroes overall as well. The OT, what's going to happen with it, I don't know, but things could be getting a little rushed, a little lazy, or they could be completely different. We could be sitting here in a month's time and have Starkiller Base and Crate as well as all the OT maps. Time will tell, but it is coming down to those capital ships being skipped for the original trilogy era. I think that's going to work very differently. It's going to make the mode feel a bit too arcadey for me. So we will see how it goes. Maybe Scarif and Death Star could have been combined into one. When you finish the phase on Scarif, you somehow manage to open the shield gate and go up to the Death Star. That's not going to happen, but I would have preferred that. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, though. I do hope you enjoyed. Be sure to like and subscribe if you did. Let me know where you stand on this topic, because I know there's been leaks about original trilogy reinforcements and whatnot there. They are only leaks for now, so I'm not going to take any of it as confirmed. But things seem to be falling together very quickly. Maybe they've just got more staff working on the game. We need answers. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.